Hey folks, Dr. Shawn Baker here again. Let's talk a little bit about dairy. Now, dairy is a topic that a lot of people have opinions on. Some people think it's awful, people think it's great. The literature is very split on that topic. So let's just kind of put a little bit of insight into dairy. Should you be consuming it? Should you be avoiding it? Well, there are problems that some people point out, the fact that it's high in saturated fat, and it's very true. Milk fat or dairy fat is probably about 65 to 75% saturated fat. It's one of the most saturated fat containing foods there is. You know, even meat, which is, vilified for saturated fat, I think unfairly, by the way, is only about 45% saturated fat. The nice thing about saturated fat is they're very stable. They're made of molecules that are very well put together. There's no bonds that are easily broken, so they tend to not oxidize. They tend not to be damaged, and therefore they tend to be very, very stable. So it can be very good for things like cooking, and there's good arguments that it's something that's very beneficial to us. Milk has, in addition to saturated fat, it has polyunsaturated fats, including certain compounds, particularly human milk has the omega-3 fat DHA. Goat milk or sheep milk tend to have high levels of things called medium chain triglycerides, which might have a particular benefit depending on what your thoughts are around MCTs. Some people feel that it makes it easier for you to go into ketosis if that is your goal. Regardless, the nature of the fats in dairy make things like butter and ghee very suitable for cooking. Is dairy the best choice for bone health? And so while for a growing child, milk, particularly milk from its mother, is very important for growth, there may be conflicting evidence about what it does to bones later on in life. And so it should be noticed that while dairy is a good source of calcium, our bones are more than just calcium. I mean, certainly calcium is in there, but we're not sticks of chalk. I mean, we have a lot of type 1 collagen in there, we have phosphate in there, and where can you get those compounds? Well, you can find them in meat and eggs, things like bone broth. So these are rich sources of the necessary proteins that probably provide us a lot of bone health. Now, one of the thoughts is dairy is an easily digested protein source, and while it is a very good protein source, let no one dissuade you from that fact. It's a great source of protein, particularly whey protein. There's a tremendous amount of data showing how valuable whey protein is a source of protein. And let's talk a little bit about whey. Whey is that liquidy stuff that separates out. It's a very quickly digesting protein. When our body senses whey in the digestive tract, we start to release growth factors like insulin, which is great for growing as a child. Now, later on in life, that may be problematic for some people. Now, if we're growing all the time, sometimes we put on a lot of body fat. Now, if you're training hard and you're working out and you're putting that stimulus to use, it may not be as big of an issue. And let's talk about the other form of protein found in milk is something called casein. Casein is kind of more of a clumpier, more solid form, and it tends to be slower to digest. One of the issues, or some people will talk about, is something called beta-casomorphine, which is something that causes sort of an opiate-like effect, particularly in the gut. And so this can have consequences for gut motility, gut distress, things of that nature. And again, there are two types of these caseins that are found in milk protein, an A1 and an A2. A2 is what humans typically have when they're babies, and they're exposed to that. So we're kind of better set up to deal with A2 compared to, say, A1. And A1 is found in much of the conventional dairy. So there's some people that believe A2 dairy is somewhat more natural for us. Other people talk about the different things that go into dairy, whether it's pasteurized versus non-pasteurized, whether it's raw, whether it's fermented. All those things will have an effect. Now, another thing is a lot of people are lactose intolerant. In fact, about 2/3 of the people in the world just don't have good tolerance to lactose, and lactose is a sugar that is found in milk. It is a combination of glucose and galactose, and so there are supplements you can take, lactose or lactase-containing pills, or they can have lactose-free milk where they basically cleave that down for you. For many people, they're still having problems with that, so it may help in some cases, but for many people, it's an issue. About 30% of the problem has some level of persistent lactase, so they can continue to digest that into adulthood and maybe for their whole life. And these tend to be a lot of times Northern European folks that do really well with dairy. Dairy is something that we should be able to digest our whole life. Well, the truth is, dairy, particularly in pretty much every other mammal, is designed to be consumed during our infant infancy, and it's not necessarily designed for adulthood. So some people will say, well, humans are not designed to consume the milk of another animal. You hear this from the plant-based people all the time, and that you shouldn't be consuming milk after a certain age, after you've left sort of toddlerhood. Well, what I would say is certainly that statement has some merit to it, but at the same time, remember, milk is a wonderful, nutritious source of protein and bioavailable fats. So I think you just have to check your own tolerance on this sort of thing and see what happens. If you're dealing with an autoimmune disease or some other condition, dairy is one of the first things I tell people to consider getting rid of, because for a lot of people that actually is a problem. All right, guys, this has been helpful. Let us know in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this with somebody you think might benefit from this, and we'll talk to you soon.